Hi, my name's Lana. They say baby showers are supposed to be joyful, full of laughter, hope, maybe a little too much pink frosting. But mine ended with police lights outside the venue, and my mother-in-law shouting that she was the real mother. She hijacked the party, tried to name my baby without asking, and told everyone I was just the vessel. And the worst part? My husband signed a custody document she drafted behind my back. Was this ever about celebration, or was it always about control? I had scrubbed every inch of the kitchen, set out the good silverware, and even steamed Jonas's favorite shirt. It wasn't just a brunch. It was a quiet announcement of the biggest change in our lives. After years of hoping, after more disappointments than I dare say out loud, we were finally expecting. And for once, I wanted to share something on my terms. My home, my table, my news. Jonas hovered near the living room, nervously checking his watch for the third time. My mother, Maybeth, had already arrived 20 minutes early, like always, holding her favorite banana bread and a quiet smile. She knew. She had guessed before the test even turned positive. Mothers do that. She was gentle about it, though. Never pried, just stayed close. "What if she doesn't come?" I asked quietly, not needing to name who. "She'll come," Maybeth replied. "She never misses a stage." I didn't want to think of it like that. I wanted to believe that today could be different, that Verlaine, my mother-in-law, could walk into this house not like a critic, but like family, that she'd look past the fact that we hadn't told her first and just be happy. But the truth was, she never liked not being the first to know. When she finally arrived, it was like the thermostat dropped a few degrees. Verlaine wore her signature beige wrap and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She scanned the room quickly, eyes landing on the decorations, the food, my bump. Her pause was just long enough to make the room inhale. "Well," she said, voice as smooth as it was sharp, "I guess everyone's in on this but me." Jonas stepped forward. "We were going to tell you today. Together. We just wanted to wait until we were sure." "Safe?" Her tone rose just slightly. "Safe from whom, I wonder?" She didn't shout. Verlaine never shouted. She preferred surgical strikes delivered with a smile. The rest of brunch moved along awkwardly. Verlaine complimented the quiche with a tone that made it sound like a favor. She asked how far along I was with a perfectly rehearsed smile and an eyebrow twitch that Maybeth caught from across the table. My mother didn't speak much after that. She knew how to read a room better than anyone. I kept trying to steer the conversation back to joy. Names, nursery colors, the first kicks I had felt just last week. But every time, Verlaine redirected it. She spoke of Jonas's childhood as if I had never existed. She shared unsolicited stories of her own pregnancies, always circling back to how she just knew things before anyone else. As if to remind me, subtly and consistently, that I was late to a game she had already won. That evening, after everyone left, Jonas helped clear the plates while I wiped down the counter. He hadn't said much. I knew he felt caught in the middle. But I also knew he had seen what I saw, the look in Verlaine's eyes that said this pregnancy was about her just as much as it was about us. Later, curled on the couch, my phone buzzed. A long text, from her. "Keeping a grandchild from their grandmother is cruelty wrapped in selfishness. You've already begun dividing this family." I read it aloud. Jonas didn't interrupt, just leaned forward and rubbed his eyes. "She's just emotional," he said quietly. "Let her cool off." I looked at him, then back at the screen. "If this is her cooled down," I said softly, "what happens next?" I knew the answer. I had known since before the brunch. Verlaine didn't like being excluded. She didn't like sharing stage lights, let alone giving them up. This wasn't about a baby. It was about a story she wanted to control. I turned off the lamp, kissed Jonas goodnight, and stared at the ceiling long after he had fallen asleep. She's going to make this about her, isn't she? And I wasn't wrong. That brunch was only the appetizer to her full-course drama. 2 weeks later, a thick ivory envelope arrived in the mailbox. The kind that looks like it belongs to a wedding or a gala, not a baby shower. My name wasn't handwritten on the front. It was printed, mechanical, cold. Inside, a gold-trimmed invitation, embossed with cursive script that read, "Please join us in honoring the upcoming arrival of baby Carl, hosted by Verlaine Carl." No mention of me. Not Lana. Not even the parents. Just her. Jonas saw me reading it at the kitchen counter. He lit up like a kid. "She's trying, babe. Look, she booked the Glenridge room. That place is gorgeous." I smiled, because that's what you do when your husband sees hope where you see strategy. "Yeah," I murmured, folding the card slowly. "Gorgeous." That night she called. Her voice was syrupy, just a little too sweet to be real. "Darling, you just relax. Let me take care of everything. You'll thank me later. All you need to do is show up and glow." She had chosen a theme, timeless legacy. She emphasized the word legacy like she had practiced it. "It'll be tasteful," she said. "Elegant. A real representation of the Carl lineage." I asked, "Did you and Jonas talk about the theme?" There was a pause. "Oh, sweetheart, no need to trouble him. I've already spoken with the decorator and the caterer. It's under control." I hung up and stared at the ceiling for a while. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was cataloging, observing, preparing. The next day, my mother called. "I tried calling Verlaine about the shower," she said, her voice clipped but calm. No answer. I stayed silent, waiting. "She finally picked up on the fourth try," Maybeth continued. "Told me the event is going to be small and tasteful. She said that word 3 times. My grip on the phone tightened. "Did she just imply you aren't tasteful?" Maybeth didn't answer right away. "She's drawing lines," she said gently. "Just make sure you know which side you're on." I already knew. I had known since the envelope landed in our mailbox, with her name in bold and mine missing altogether. The day after, while sorting baby clothes, I noticed something else. Every Carl woman, from Jonas's cousins to his aunts, had posted about the shower on Facebook, tagging Verlaine, calling her the hostess queen. No one tagged me. Not one. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I sat back, pressing a hand against my belly. She was building a kingdom, and she had no intention of naming me the queen. That night, Jonas noticed me quiet at dinner. "You're still thinking about the shower?" I didn't look up. "Do you think hospitality counts if it costs someone else their place?" He sighed. "It's just a party." "It's never just a party," I said. Later in bed, I opened the envelope again. The gold embossed lettering shimmered under the bedside lamp. Hosted by Verlaine Carl. No Lana, no Ray, just her. My name isn't even on it, but hers is in bold. And yet, I RSVP'd yes. Not to honor her invitation, but to confront her staging. The air outside the venue that day was unusually warm for spring. Jonas and I pulled up a few minutes early. I could already see her through the glass doors, gesturing at florists and caterers like a conductor in the final swell of a performance. Verlaine was in her element. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd promised. Timeless legacy, as she called it. Beige and brown tones blanketed the entire space. Drapes, centerpieces, chair covers. It felt less like a baby shower and more like a museum exhibit for the Carl family bloodline. I stood at the entrance, taking it in, the distant clinking of glassware echoing behind her perfection. Guests began arriving. They complimented the decor, the floral arrangements, the calligraphy on the place cards. Not once did anyone say, "Lana, you did such a lovely job." Because, of course, I hadn't done anything. Verlaine hadn't left room for it. On one of the walls hung a quote framed in gold, "Bloodlines are more lasting than bonds." It was one of Verlaine's favorites. I'd heard her say it before, always with that smug undertone that suggested her way of raising Jonas made him the catch he was. Maybeth leaned toward me. This looks like a fundraiser, not a baby shower. I smiled tightly. She does love a legacy. Then I saw it. Near the entrance. A massive 6-foot banner. An elaborate collage of Jonas as a baby. There were over 24 pictures. His first steps, his 3rd birthday, even a photo of him in a sailor suit that I'd once gently teased him about. Right in the middle, embossed in bold cursive, a plaque read, "What perfection runs in this bloodline?" I blinked, stunned. A guest next to me chuckled, nudging her friend. "Well, now we know who the baby's gonna take after." I wasn't angry yet, but something in me paused. I walked toward the banner, inspecting the entire thing. There was no sonogram, no photo of me and Jonas, no note from us as parents-to-be. It was a shrine, not to the baby, but to the source of the DNA. I found Verlaine by the catering table, sipping something pink out of a champagne flute. "Verlaine," I said quietly, "where's the ultrasound photo I sent you?" She turned, smiled with a flick of her hair. "Didn't quite fit the aesthetic, dear." The way she said aesthetic made my skin tighten. I held her gaze for a second too long. She didn't flinch. Back at my table, I watched the room from behind my water glass. People were laughing, smiling, tossing out stories of Jonas as a child. I'd heard 3 different women refer to him as the golden boy. No one mentioned the pregnancy cravings. No one asked how I was feeling. My own baby shower had become a retroactive tribute to his baby years. If you're not invited into the story, I thought, you'll be written out of it. Maybeth sat beside me, her hand brushing mine under the table. She didn't need to say anything. Her silence was her strength. Jonas came over, offering a bite of cake. "This is going really well, don't you think?" I looked at him, long and steady. "This isn't a celebration, it's a coronation, and I'm not the one wearing the crown." He paused, unsure how to respond. Then he nodded. "Do you want to leave?" I shook my head. "Not yet." Because if I left now, I'd be erased entirely. "This is my baby's welcome," I whispered, "not your family reunion." By the time the group began gathering near the gift table, I had made my decision. I would not cry. I would not run. I would watch, take note, and remember. Verlaine had made the guest list. She'd planned the decor. She'd chosen the venue, the cake, the speeches. But she hadn't yet seen what I was capable of. I leaned toward Maybeth, voice low and calm. "You were right. I should have never said yes to this. But if I was going to be there, I'd make sure she remembered who this baby really belonged to." Lunch was served on porcelain plates that looked like they'd been lifted from an old southern plantation. Verlaine clinked her glass with a silver butter knife, and the room, full of friends, extended family, and women I'd never met, fell into a hush. She stood, one hand resting lightly on the back of Jonas's chair like it was her throne. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice velvety and composed. "Today is more than a celebration of new life. It's a reminder of the legacy we carry as Southern women. We are the keepers of tradition, the pillars that hold families upright." I sat frozen, my fork still on my plate. My name hadn't been mentioned, not once. No congratulations to Lana, no thank you for carrying this beautiful child. She hadn't even acknowledged Maybeth, who sat 2 seats down, jaw tight and glass untouched. And then it happened. Verlaine turned, stepped aside, and gestured toward an easel draped in white linen. A cousin of Jonas pulled the fabric down like unveiling a statue. It was a handcrafted board, soft pastel colors, lace trim, and one name in the center, written in cursive gold foil, Eugenia Clare. Gasps, followed by the kind of applause that only happens when people don't know what else to do. "She'll carry the name of my grandmother," Verlaine announced, "the woman who built this family's foundation, who taught us strength, poise, and grace." I didn't move. Not at first. My fingers curled under the tablecloth. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Jonas looked at me, panic in his eyes. He leaned in and mouthed, I didn't know. Of course he didn't. That was the point. I stood, slow and steady. The room went quiet again. We haven't chosen a name yet, I said, my voice low but sharp. And when we do, it won't be because it was announced before dessert. The air cracked, like that tense silence just before a glass shatters. Verlaine kept smiling, but her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Oh, sweetie, she cooed. We all know you're carrying this blessing thanks to Gary's genes. Let's all thank her for being the vessel of our future. A few people clapped. One woman laughed a little too loud. I sat back down, breath shallow, heart pounding. Maybeth reached out, her fingers wrapping around mine like a silent warning. Not here, not now. She thinks I should be grateful, I whispered, for carrying her grandchild, like it's a job she assigned me. A guest to my left leaned in and muttered, "This feels more like a political campaign than a baby shower." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. But I wasn't quiet inside. Verlaine had overstepped before. But this was a performance, a rebranding of reality. She had made herself the matriarch, the visionary, the honored elder. And me? I was the surrogate in pearls. No more. Just because someone speaks first doesn't mean they get the last word. I waited until the next lull in conversation, then stood again, my expression calm, my voice even. We'll name our daughter when we're ready, and not a moment sooner. But saying that out loud only made her push harder, like a queen who just got her crown questioned. The room dimmed just slightly as the banquet hall staff wheeled in the cake. The thing was a tower, 3 tiers high, smothered in beige frosting with gold accents curling along the edges like vines. A small spotlight from the ceiling hit the top layer, casting a warm glow across the inscription. Welcome, Eugenia Clare. It was written in looping gold icing, so shiny and centered it looked embossed. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stared at it, while the crowd oohed and whispered about how elegant it looked. Verlaine smiled like a pageant host and picked up the serving knife from its velvet pillow. Yes, she'd put the knife on a velvet pillow. She held it out to me, both hands extended, like she was offering me a royal scepter. Go ahead, sweetheart, she said, beaming. Cut right across the name. It's good luck. I took the knife without looking at her. The weight of the moment dropped into my chest like a stone. Everyone leaned forward slightly, as if this was some kind of sacred ritual. Some guests held their phones up, cameras already recording. I looked at Jonas. His expression was blank, unreadable. Either he was completely clueless or frozen in the same disbelief I was. The name on the cake stared back at me. Not ours, not mine. I angled the knife, then paused. You okay? Jonas asked. I nodded. Then I shifted the blade just off-center and cut a slice far away from the name. Clean. Precise. Intentional. Someone near the back whispered, just loud enough for others to catch it. She's making her sign the contract with frosting. A few soft chuckles. Verlaine's smile didn't fade, but her eyes narrowed a millimeter. Oh, she said lightly. That's all right. I'm sure there'll be other cakes in the future, more chances to celebrate properly. I handed the knife back, careful not to meet her gaze. Murmurs moved through the room like a current. Not loud, not chaotic, but something had shifted. I returned to my seat, and as I reached for my glass, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Verlaine was already in motion, weaving through the crowd toward Jonas. Before I could even lift my hand, she had wrapped both arms around him. Just look at him, she said loudly, turning toward the crowd. Our boy, about to become a father. Just like his father was. Strong, steady. Laughter, nods, a few women sighing with nostalgia. I was sitting 6 feet away, invisible. I turned to Maybeth. She was watching, her jaw set. Her hand slid beneath the table, squeezing mine gently but firmly. That's when I felt it. An understanding, not a reaction. This wasn't just a party anymore. This was Verlaine's farewell tour before naming herself Queen Mother. I leaned toward Jonas, my voice low. "This isn't a baby shower," I said. "It's a rebranding." He looked at me, torn, speechless, and in his silence, I heard her applause. I watched as Verlaine floated from table to table, accepting compliments like awards. She threw out lines like, "It's all about family," and "I just want what's best for this child." Her smile was rehearsed, her tone polished. She was campaigning, not celebrating. No one stopped her. I didn't yell, I didn't throw the cake, but something inside me stitched itself together in silence. Thread by thread, something stronger than anger began forming. Resolve. You can't be replaced, I thought, if you refuse to exit. And maybe the loudest person in the room is the one most terrified of being forgotten. I stood slowly, careful not to make a scene, and walked away from the cake table. I passed the banner, the table with her name tags, the pile of gifts, all of it staged like an exhibit in her museum. Without turning around, I whispered to myself, if she thinks this is over, she hasn't read the rest of me. And she was about to turn the page into war. It should have ended with the cake. That's where most baby showers wrap up. The thank you speeches, the parting hugs, the polite cleanup. But Verlaine wasn't done. She didn't know how to exit a stage quietly. She needed an encore. Guests were lingering, finishing drinks, hovering around the dessert table when she clinked her glass again. This time, there was no microphone, no announcement from the planner. Just her voice, clear, loud, practiced. She stood at the front of the room with a smile carved too tightly onto her face, one hand resting on Jonas's shoulder. I birthed the man who made this child, she began. Without me, there is no baby. Laughter erupted in pockets, though some guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I didn't laugh. I couldn't. Something in me stiffened like a spring drawn too tight. She kept going. You all clap for her, but I'm the real mommy, she said. I gave birth to the seed that made this child. This baby is mine, too. I don't remember standing. I don't remember stepping backward. But I do remember the way the room tilted, as if gravity had shifted, as if the air had stopped moving. My skin prickled from the inside out. Jonas said nothing, just stood there, like a man watching a house burn and wondering if it was still salvageable. Maybeth leaned over, whispering, "Don't let her shrink you, sweetheart." But she already had. She hadn't just crossed a line, she'd rewritten the map. This woman didn't want to be involved. She wanted to be acknowledged as co-creator. I stepped back further, grabbed my purse from the chair, and calmly walked to the hallway near the venue's entrance. The room buzzed behind me, like a disturbed hive. With steady fingers, I pulled out my phone. I'm at a private event at Glen Ridge Hall, I told the dispatcher. I need assistance. A guest is behaving aggressively, verbally disruptive. It's escalating, and I no longer feel comfortable. Are they threatening you? Not physically, I said, but they are making themselves a danger to the peace of this gathering, and I need them removed. 10 minutes later, the sound of police radios broke through the buzz of clinking glasses and forced laughter. The officers walked in calmly, hands on their belts, and asked for Verlaine Carl. She didn't panic. She argued. You don't understand, she said, her voice pitching higher. This is my family. That woman has been manipulating my son, turning him against his own blood. I have a right to be here. One officer nodded patiently. You're being asked to leave, ma'am. Verlaine turned toward me, eyes wide with mock betrayal. You'll regret this. This is my grandchild. I didn't speak. I didn't flinch. I just watched her get escorted toward the exit in her beige heels and matching pearls. Her voice still echoed behind me. Someone, a younger guest, maybe in her 20s, brushed my arm and whispered, That was the strongest thing I've ever seen. I nodded, still silent. There's power in staying calm while they collapse. I walked back toward the table. Jonas stood still, eyes on the doorway his mother had just exited through. Still think this was just about a party? I asked him quietly. Because what came after proved this wasn't just a breakdown, it was a battle plan. The next morning, I woke to notifications. My phone buzzed until I silenced it, but the damage had already begun. Text, tags, messages from people I barely knew, and some I hadn't heard from since high school, all pointing me to the same post. Verlaine had gone live, digitally, not literally. She'd posted a long, somber paragraph on Facebook. The photo? A shot of her outside the venue, eyes glassy, one hand to her chest like she was clutching a memory. Heartbroken that I was asked to leave my grandchild's shower yesterday, I only wanted to celebrate, praying for healing, for this baby, for our family. Love shouldn't divide us. The comments poured in. You didn't deserve that. She should be ashamed. You've always been so classy, Barbara. And just like that, my story wasn't mine anymore. She turned my trauma into her brand, I muttered, handing the phone to Jonas across the breakfast table. He skimmed it, then froze. I don't even know where to start. I do, I said, standing. She got ahead of it. He looked at me. You're not thinking of posting something too, are you? I turned. She dragged me into the public eye. I won't let her be the only one with a microphone. A few hours later, while folding laundry, I found something wedged beneath a chair by the wall. One of the invitation cards, her version, not mine. It read, "The Carl Barbara Family Baby Shower." I stared at it. Not a single mention of me or Jonas together. Just her and the last name she clung to, like royalty. She printed her own narrative, I said out loud. Maybeth, who'd stopped by to drop off freezer meals, saw the card in my hand. She was never honoring you. She was preparing her own legacy. I nodded, quiet rage rising. Not loud, not explosive, but strategic. Like a storm that doesn't make noise until it's already overhead. That night, I opened my laptop. Screenshots, messages. The date and time Verlaine was escorted out. The video someone had taken, partially blurred, but her voice still sharp. You'll regret this. This is my grandchild. I didn't share it, not yet. But I saved it, organized it, documented every thread, every lie, every manipulation. Jonas stood behind me, watching the screen. Are we really doing this now? Going tit for tat? I looked over my shoulder. No, I'm not trading punches. I'm building a case. Against my mother? Against the version of her that she keeps posting to the world, I said. Because it's not about being vindictive. It's about not being erased. Later that evening, I posted nothing. I simply typed a few words into the Notes app on my phone and left them there. An apology without accountability is just PR. The following day, my inbox lit up again. A few people asked what happened. One message read, I know Verlaine from the church group. She's always so kind. Did you really call the cops? I didn't answer that one. Instead, I opened the message thread, took a screenshot, and added it to my growing folder. Truth file. I wasn't ready to go public, but I was done staying silent. Before bed, I found Jonas sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. She made herself the victim, he said softly, and people are eating it up. I didn't disagree. I just nodded, pulling the blanket back. She declared war dressed like a victim, I told him. So I'll wear the truth like armor. She played the victim. I played the tape. I was folding laundry when the email popped up. The subject line read, You should hear this. It was from Silas Drex, an old college friend of Jonas's who had moved out to Austin years ago. We hadn't spoken in forever, which is why I nearly ignored it. But something about the wording made me open it. No greeting, just an audio file. And one line beneath it. You're not crazy. She's done it before. I sat down on the bed and hit play. Verlaine's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. You're just an incubator, she said. My son deserves to raise a child in his own image, not yours. The air caught in my throat. She wasn't talking to me. It was someone else, Jonas's ex-wife. From years ago. She said that to her? I whispered. pressing pause. She did this before? I forwarded the file to myself, labeled it, and walked straight to the living room, where Jonas was scrolling on his phone. You need to listen to this. He looked up, confused. What is it? Your mother, I said, handing him the phone. It took 30 seconds. Then his face changed. I thought it was just a bad moment, he said quietly. God, I thought it was a one-time meltdown. I crossed my arms. Your denial was her permission slip. He didn't argue. That night, Clara sent me a text with a link. You've gone viral. I clicked it. A shaky video from the shower, shot by someone sitting 2 tables over. The caption read, Meal loses it, claims she's the real mommy. It had over 30,000 views. Comments poured in beneath it. This is abuse dressed in pearls. I would have called the cops too. How dare she speak like that to the mother? I didn't post a reply. I didn't share or comment. I just watched the flood of strangers recognize exactly what I had been screaming inside my own head for months. Then one comment caught my eye. This woman deserves her story told. I opened my phone, pulled up the voicemail from Silas, and uploaded it. Just the audio, no visuals, no captions. But I added one sentence. I wasn't her first target. I was just the first one to record it. Within hours, it spread. The same people who had called me dramatic now apologized. Women from parenting groups messaged me privately. Some shared their own Verlaine stories, different names, same tactics. Even a few of Verlaine's former church friends posted, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Jonas said nothing that night. He sat across the room, eyes downcast, scrolling through the fallout. I don't want to believe she's that person, he finally said. She is, I told him. And now, so does everyone else. Later, when things quieted and the laundry was folded, I leaned back on the couch, phone still in my hand. Some people don't lose control. They wield it, and truth doesn't need volume, just a mic. As I tucked away the last of the laundry and turned off the lights, I paused outside the nursery. I looked down at my stomach and said softly, You'll never wonder what really happened. I'll make sure you know. That night, as I poured myself a glass of water, I looked at Maybeth and said, She played the victim, I played the tape, and what we uncovered next made everything before look like the trailer to her full-blown plan. 2 days after I posted the audio, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, sipping lukewarm tea, when I reached into Jonas's desk to grab an envelope. We'd been sorting tax documents, and I needed one of the 1099s. Instead, I pulled out a manila envelope I hadn't seen before, tucked half-hidden behind a binder labeled 2019. It was labeled in Sharpie, Emergency Custody Agreement. I opened it. Legal language, paragraphs, notarized signatures. Jonas's name signed, not mine. I read it once, then again, slower. My throat dried. Temporary guardianship to Verlaine Carl, in the event of medical incapacitation during labor or postpartum recovery. I didn't say a word. I walked into the living room, document in hand, and held it out. What the hell is this? Jonas blinked, confused, then paled when he recognized it. She gave me that after your second ultrasound, he said, voice too calm. She said it was just in case. You know, for emergencies. Emergencies, I repeated. You signed a document giving my child to your mother because of emergencies? His mouth opened and closed. She said it was for peace of mind, for both of us. I laughed, sharp, humorless. You didn't protect both of us. You protected her future, not mine. Jonas rubbed his forehead. I didn't think she'd actually... You signed away my child like it was a mail order form, I snapped. He fell silent. And then, like a puzzle piece slamming into place, I remembered. At the shower, she had said, half laughing, If anything happens during labor, I know Jonas will make the right decision. I had dismissed it as a cruel joke, but it wasn't. It was conditioning. She was planning to replace me if she could, I said slowly. Jonas looked up, haunted. She already did, emotionally. I nodded. Legally was just the next step. I didn't wait another second. I called my attorney. That afternoon, I filed a notice to void the agreement. I called my OB/GYN and told them Verlaine was no longer authorized for any updates or access. I changed the emergency contacts on every form I could think of, from my hospital records to the pediatrician I hadn't even picked yet. And then, I sat on the edge of my bed and breathed. I didn't just revoke her access. I revoked her fantasy. Later, when Jonas brought me dinner on a tray and tried to say something, anything, I held up my hand. A signature can't give away what was never yours to begin with. He sat nodding. And just because someone wears the title family doesn't mean they inherit your child. I could see him absorbing it, slowly, quietly, but whether he would act on that truth, only time would tell. As the sun dipped behind the trees, casting our bedroom in that soft orange haze that only happens in Texas just before dusk, I looked him in the eyes and said, clear as glass, "You signed one document without asking me. You don't get to sign another. The only inheritance she'll get is silence." 2 mornings had passed since the custody agreement came to light. I was in the middle of reorganizing a drawer in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. A courier stood there with a clipboard and a small, stiff envelope, certified mail. I signed, closed the door, and opened it over the sink. Inside, a typed invoice, stapled and dated. From Verlaine Carl Total, $5,280. Itemized list. Venue reservation, $1,750. Catering and beverages, $100. Cake and decor design, $850. Banner print and materials, $380. Legacy-themed materials, $100 memo line. Celebration of life, Nova Ray Carl. She billed me for the party she hijacked, and she priced it like she was launching a business. I stared at it for a full minute before laughing, an ugly, hollow sound that echoed off the cabinets. Jonas walked in just in time to see the paper trembling in my hands. "What's that?" he asked. I held it out. He scanned it silently, his jaw tightening. "You've got to be kidding me." "You signed away our daughter last week," I said, still staring at the invoice. "And now she's sending me a receipt. How poetic." He didn't reply. I pulled up my bank app, took a screenshot of my account, balance $34.92, and attached it to an email with one sentence. "I don't pay con artists for performances I didn't request." Then I hit send. Later that afternoon, Jonas and I began packing up the guest gifts and leftovers. In the corner of the dining room, behind the armchair, something caught my eye. A thin silver frame, half wedged between the furniture and the wall. It was a photo collage, clearly custom printed. A digital rendering of a family portrait. Verlaine, holding a baby in a white lace gown. Jonas next to her, smiling. The baby's face had been photoshopped, eyes large, skin glowing, everything soft and surreal. I was nowhere in the image. Jonas sat beside me as I stared. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Maybeth, who'd come to help with the cleanup, walked over quietly. She picked up the frame, turned it face down, and set it gently on the console table. "She planned this whole thing like a legacy project," I said, "and I was the erased placeholder." No more. I called the family mediator, began filing a formal restriction for all postnatal access. I sent documentation to my OB/GYN, birthing center, and the pediatrician's office, pre-registering instructions that stated in bold, Verlaine Carl is to be denied all physical and verbal access. Every form, every hospital list, every line that asked for approved family now had her name blacked out. I updated my birth plan. Section 3. Emergency Contact Protocol. One sentence, centered and bolded. No medical information is to be disclosed to Verlaine Carl under any circumstances. That night, Jonas sat beside me on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. "She meant well," he said. I didn't turn to look at him. "She meant control." Silence stretched between us. You don't send an invoice to a mother and expect a thank you note, I said. He didn't argue. This wasn't a shower, I added. It was an audition for a role she was never cast in. We sat in silence, not cold, not angry, just done. Later, before going to bed, I opened my phone and deleted her number. Not blocked, just erased. Like she'd done to me in that frame. I turned to Jonas. The only inheritance she'll get is silence. The only inheritance she'll get is silence. That week passed in a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in months. For the first time since the shower, there were no messages, no unexpected packages, no staged apologies, disguised as guilt-wrapped ultimatums. Just quiet. And in that quiet, Nova Ray kicked for the first time. I was alone in the nursery when it happened, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting a stack of onesies by size and color. The faint thump against the side of my belly made me pause. Then it happened again, firmer. I placed my palm there and smiled. Not the forced smile I'd been perfecting for months, but the real one. Just mine. I stayed in that room most of the afternoon, reorganizing drawers, dusting the edges of the bookshelf. In the back corner, wedged behind a box of unopened baby monitors, I found it. A folded card, slightly bent at the edges. Handmade. Thick cream cardstock. Maybeth's handwriting, neat, soft cursive, that had graced every birthday card since I could remember. To my daughter and granddaughter, it read, "You are both the start of your own legacy." No signatures, just that single line. I stared at it for a long time. She must have slipped it in during setup, maybe tucked it in the diaper stack, assuming I'd find it when things had settled. Except Verlaine had found it first. And like anything she couldn't control, she'd hidden it. She couldn't erase me, so she tried to erase who loved me. I took the card, pressed it flat, and placed it inside a silver frame. Then I set it on the nursery shelf, eye level with the crib. No photos, no fanfare, just words that didn't need decoration. That evening, Jonas came home late. He lingered in the hallway for a while, then knocked gently on the doorframe. "Mind if I sit?" I nodded. He sat across from me on the edge of the glider, elbows on his knees. "I've spent more time defending my mother's history than protecting our future," he said quietly. I didn't reply. I just handed him the card. He read it. Once, then again, slower. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't say anything, just sat with it, the way people do when truth hits a little harder than they're ready for. Then, finally, he looked up. "Thank you," he said, voice cracking, "for not becoming like her, even when you had the chance." There were no grand declarations, no promises of change, just that moment, raw, silent, human. And maybe that was enough. No more rage, no more proving, just clarity, boundaries, ownership. Some gifts aren't wrapped in bows. They're made of the people who never stopped showing up. I began writing a new version of my birth plan the next morning. Not the clinical one with bullet points and contingency steps. This one was personal. Not for doctors, not for Jonas. Just for me. Forgiveness isn't letting someone back in. Sometimes it's just closing the door gently. You don't heal by waiting for someone to say sorry. You heal when you stop needing it. As the sun dipped and the room filled with that soft pre-evening light, I walked into the nursery. I placed my hand over my belly, closed my eyes, and whispered, "You'll know who loved you first, and who chose to keep loving you even when it wasn't easy. You'll know who loved you first, and who chose to keep loving you even when it wasn't easy." 2 weeks later, we sat across from a mediator in a beige office lined with artificial plants and dusty legal books. Jonas looked drained, his hands clasped between his knees, staring down like a schoolboy waiting for detention to start. I held the folder in my lap with quiet certainty. When asked if I wanted to request any formal limitations, I slid the paper across the table. "I want Verlaine Carl disinvited from all future access. Medical, legal, educational." The mediator looked up. "Are you sure?" "She had every chance to earn her role," I said calmly. Instead, she forged it. The form was signed before we left the office. No fight, no drama, just ink, initials, and a final line through a chapter I never asked to write. That evening, I sat on the porch with my phone and posted just one message. No hashtags, no names, no passive swipes. Family is who shows up and stays gentle, even when it's hard. Attached was a photo, my hand resting on my belly, with the framed card from Maybeth softly visible in the background. It didn't explode online. It didn't need to. It was quiet. It was dignified. And yet somehow it spread. A woman commented, "You just gave words to something I've lived for years, but never said aloud." That was enough. 3 days later, a package arrived at the front door. Unmarked, no sender listed. I opened it carefully. Inside, a silver vanity mirror. On the back, etched in cursive, were the words, "To the woman raising my legacy." I stared at it for a moment. Then I pulled a sticky note from the kitchen drawer, wrote 6 words, and sent it back unopened. Legacy isn't inherited, it's earned. The next morning, I woke early and finished painting the nursery. The beige that Verlaine loved was gone. In its place was lavender, soft, intentional, mine. Above the crib, in gold cursive I hand-painted myself, I added one line, "She will know the truth, and the truth will raise her better." As I stood there, brush still in hand, Maybeth came to the door, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one without a word and looked around the room. "You did what I couldn't," she said softly. "You raised me to know when to speak," I replied. "You gave me my voice. I just used it." That night, I sat in the rocker by the window, the soft creak of it the only sound in the room. The card still sat framed by the bookshelf. The light from the hallway spilled in just enough to catch the gold lettering on the wall. I placed my hand over my belly again and whispered, "Your name is your own. Your story begins with me, and it won't need edits." Then I looked up, toward nothing and everything, and spoke one last truth. I didn't just stop her, I stopped the pattern. And that is how you break a legacy and build a better one.